We're joined by Marlboro High baseball coach Mike Reynolds and his daughter Emma. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, to begin these interviews, most of the time we like to try to start off with a couple of easier questions to get to know you and a little bit about your past.
Okay.
So with that said, how old were you when you first learned the game, and who taught you?
Right off the bat, I was in the game. My dad played professional baseball for the Phillies. So as soon as I was born, I was in a major league park and took off from there.
Yeah. Now, what type of experience was that for you at such an early age to be around professional athletes like that?
It was fantastic. I mean, a lot of the stuff I learned, obviously my dad taught me a lot, but watching guys play at that level, I was able to just soak it all in. Like, I was that annoying kid in the clubhouse constantly asking questions.
That's great. Who would be the athlete or the professional that probably stood out to you the most as a kid?
One of my favorites growing up, for some reason, was Fred Lynn. I think just the way he played in the outfield, the diving catches and all that really, at that age, really stood out to me a lot.
Was there any of the Phillies players that took to you, and do you have any maybe stories about them?
Yeah, it's actually, it's funny. I played with, growing up, like Brett Boone and Aaron Boone were like two of my birthday mates and stuff, and I actually got to see Brett at a regional. I was playing at Georgia Tech there, USC was there, and got to run into him, talk to him for a few minutes. But yeah, a lot of those guys, it's just fantastic. Like watching Bob Boone, Steve Carlton was there, Tim McCarver, Larry Boa. So a lot of guys that were around at that time are still in the game in some way, shape, or form.
What about your particular playing career? Even starting as far back as middle school, high school.
Yeah, it's. I actually started playing Legion ball in 7th grade. I didn't play a lot that year, but Coach Ted Rolfe went down for the tryouts and stuff, and he actually had coached my dad when he was in high school and gave me an opportunity. So to see the difference in the speed of the game, because at that time Legion ball was the only game that wasn't AAU. So you had mainly juniors and seniors in high school playing. So I was able to see how much faster the game was and kind of incorporate that into what I felt I needed to pick up on. But middle school went well. High school I was able to start as a freshman, played second base. Sophomore year I moved to catcher. Halfway through junior year I played a little bit of shortstop. Then my senior year I played mainly short.
What type of influence do you think that had on you as a coach, playing catcher and being a middle infielder?
Huge. It really did. Like anyone that's a decent baseball player and the younger, I try and encourage them to play catcher at some point in time. It's just everything that's going on in the field, it just gives you a different perspective. You can see it much more clearly than you can if you're playing only one position all the time. And even in middle school, and I coach for Northeast Baseball, I do their 14U program. I try to move the kids around as much as possible. And because at some point I try to explain to them, I say, if you're a shortstop, you're going to go someplace, there's going to be a shortstop better than you. And if that's all you can play, you're stuck.
Sure.
You have to be comfortable at multiple positions, and it makes you a better player in your main position too, if you know what other guys are seeing and what their responsibilities are.
Being a former catcher, do you now, with your current catches, are you a little bit more critical of them?
No, I try to let them call they're calling their own pitches. They're working with the pitchers. I'm always there if there's a question. Every once in a while I'll get a glance looking for a little advice, but usually I let them, if they're going to make a mistake, that's how you learn, and then afterwards we'll have a discussion about it. If someone called a change-up right after a kid was blown away by a fastball, it's like, why did you call that pitch? What were you thinking? And kind of let them live and learn through that process.
When did you realize that you wanted to become a coach?
Not until I was done playing. Like, it was one of those that I think it was kind of in the back of my mind, just growing up around a coach. I got to see him make the transition from player to coach, and even in high school a little bit, like one of the comments that was made oftentimes, it must be nice having an extra coach on the field. But it was just, the way I learned the game was very different than most kids are going to learn the game. I learned watching professional players do it at a very high level, at a very quick pace. The game is much faster at that level, and sometimes I think I expect a little, not in a bad way, but expect kids to know some things So I've learned that. That's the biggest thing I've learned coaching was don't expect that a kid knows something, go down to the finer details, constantly go through everything, even the smallest thing.
Sure. Since you have been exposed to pretty much all levels of baseball, all the way up to professional, what do you think goes into being a good manager?
The manager, I can't even imagine nowadays trying to manage, just because the bullpen alone it's unbelievable how specialized things have become. Like when I grew up, mainly around the professional game, it was, if you were a starter, you were out there. If you didn't go 7, you felt like you let the team down. Now it's, say, give me 5 good ones and it's on to the next guy.
Barely a quality start.
Yeah,
Right?
just that side of it alone is just unbelievable. I think the game situations, it's probably easier now. There's a lot less, guys aren't stealing bases as much. You don't see hit and runs as much. The bunt is basically dead. Unless the guy's bunting for a base hit, you don't see sacrifice bunts that much anymore at that level. So the strategy part of it, I don't think is anywhere near what it was in the past. It's mainly managing your bullpen personnel and, who's hot stays in and who's not comes out.
Do you feel as though that the specialized version of the game that we have today has led to a poorer product?
It's tough because, it's fun to watch guys like, the Yankees had 3 guys in a row that were all coming in and throwing right around 100.
Batantis and Chapman.
Yeah, I mean, that's phenomenal to watch. But it's, at the same time, it was fun to watch a guy pitch. A lot of guys now, it seems like they throw more than they pitch. It's all right, you got 5 innings, go out there, throw as hard as you can.
Sure.
They're throwing a hard slider. You don't see that many guys that are mixing and matching with the changeup, the curveball, that sort of thing, and finding a way to get guys out.
Anybody that's played baseball in the Northeast or just the North in general knows that it's really like a 6-month window, if that you
Right.
have to be able to play. During those winter months, what do you tell your players, or how do they train to stay sharp during the off season so that way when it comes time to play in March, they're ready to go?
Yeah, that's the toughest part up here. And I think a huge part of it is the throwing side of it. It's very difficult to find an area long enough where you can actually throw and stretch it out. And, throwing long tosses, that's basically the way you're going to get that arm strength up and get a stronger arm and healthier arm. And it's hard to find areas where you can get out there and do that. You don't want them outside, obviously, when it's 15 degrees out trying to throw and stretch it out. So to me, that's where the New England kids are farther behind than a lot of the Southern kids on that side. Because when you look at how hard kids are throwing in high school now, it's unbelievable. And when you look at those kids, it's, Florida, Louisiana, Texas, up California. It's those warmer states where they're outside and they're increasing their arm strength as they go. But it's, you just do the best you can up here. I think, like when I was down at school, at the beginning of the year, Rutgers would come down, and playing against those kids was always difficult because they were so excited to be outside. It'd be, if we had a bad day, it was 60 degrees, and they were just acting like it's the middle of summer and stuff. And it was fun to see that from a different perspective.
We know about the Little League World Series and how there are strict pitch counts for
Yes.
kids of that age. That probably lends to a more specialized version of the game today that we just got done talking about.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that is a good thing for younger players to be able to have that, or do you think that they should be able to kind of develop the arm strength a little bit better?
I think at the age they're doing that, I think that the numbers they have are pretty good. In fact, in Marlboro, we have Cal Ripken, and they used to do it by innings, which was tough because you'd have some of your better kids would go out and throw, say they threw 4 innings, they might only be throwing 45 or 50 pitches. And then you go into another kid for 2 innings who might not throw as well, not be as accurate, and he's throwing 65, 70 pitches. So I think the way that they approached it, I think it's, the day's rest, I think, is the key. Because there's a lot of, in AAU, some of the programs and stuff, like you go into a tournament and there's no pitch restriction. You'll see a kid throw 3 on Friday and come back and throw 5 on Sunday. It's, if you're doing that over a regular basis, that's tough. It's not that you threw 110 pitches, it's when you throw 50, then you come back the next day, you throw another 50, so you're constantly getting it going, shutting it down, getting it going, shutting it down. If you have that rest time, I think kids can probably go a little bit deeper, but Little League, I think, is on the right page.
And we'll close off with your team in particular. What players should we keep an eye out for this year?
We've got a couple. We've got one sophomore, Hunter Reynolds, who he'll be behind the plate. He'll pitch. He'll play some third. He started every game last year as a freshman. We've got one other sophomore, Brett Federico, who mainly will play in the infield. He'll pitch a little bit. And then Mike Ryan probably is the third player. He's a junior who will play short, some outfield. He'll pitch a little bit too. So that's top third of our order right there. We've got a couple seniors that pitch in. Evan Schmidline is probably our top senior. He'll do the other half of the catching. He's got a little pop too.
Great. Well, good luck to you and your team the rest of the year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Back to you, Tom.